All right, folks, welcome to the runningrestaurants.com podcast, where we bring you the tips, tools, and techniques you need to make your restaurant more profitable and successful. I'm your host, Jaime Oikle. Today, I got a great episode for you. I'm excited. My friend and an industry expert and longtime colleague, Darren Denington, founder of Service with Style, is with us. Darren, always good to see you, man. Welcome back.
Hey, Jamie, how are you? Thanks for having me.
All right, listen, for those that don't know Darren, all right, he could talk about every aspect of the restaurant business for hours and hours and does it. He trains extensively throughout the country and does workshops and does consulting for restaurants. But today, we're going to focus on 20 to 30 minutes of service content, how to give great customer service. So I'm really looking forward to that. I feel like an uptick in service is desperately needed based on what I get out there. So maybe let's start at the beginning, though. And then we'll dig deeper, of course, but Service with Style. How'd you get started? What's going on?
Oh, sure. 27, 28 years now. It was always a passion of mine, service. That's how I entered the industry. And that's still what I love to focus on. And just working in the industry, wanted that extra set of eyes. And remember going away for a weekend, calling a friend of mine, hey, can you come in and tell me how your experience was? And just found like the feedback was incredibly valuable and just love to hear the guest perspective. So we built a company out of it, Service with Style, Secret Shopping.
Yeah. You've been doing it for years and years. Probably everybody's familiar with the idea of secret shopping, has either, seen it or been it, but let's kind of just assume no knowledge. What does it look like to be a secret shopper? What is the restaurant experiencing? What do you got?
Well, the whole cornerstone of the program is the report, right? We send in people to your establishment and we're a normal guest. Nobody knows who we are. And that report that we complete, 6, 7, 8, 9 pages, just gives you so many details. There's a couple hundred questions on it and everything's individually scored. And it just gives you a flashcard really quick of how did we do? And the very first thing that you see when you open a shopping report is your score. And I was literally just reviewing scores over the weekend, and we had 11 reports turned in from shoppers out in the field yesterday that were in the 60% scoring range.
Okay.
And just quite frankly, that's just not enough to bring guests back. But on the flip side, we had 14 or 15 of them done on the weekend that were in the 90%. That 90% score tells me, the guest, that I had value, that I appreciated the experience, that I got out of it everything that I wanted to, right? When I left my $80, was it worth it? And that 90% and above is what we guide every day. You've got to be in that level, because what we found over the years is, from a guest perspective, if I get a 90% type of experience, and that's got to be fantastic, right? We're not messing around here. 90% and above, 3 times in a row, I now trust you. And when I trust you, I visit you more often. I am willing to refer you to somebody that I know. And you're in my trusted inner circle of restaurants that I frequent regularly. But you've got to prove that. And it's not just one visit. It's got to be over and over.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, because I'm curious. That secret shopper, you say they're unknown, but obviously they're taking a lot of mental notes in their head. And you said you pointed to a couple hundred potential questions and the feedback. So I'm seeing a very valuable report here, getting that data back. And I'm sure a lot of surprising results will come to restaurant operators when they see that. So 2 things. One, talk about the shopper themselves, how they kind of process all that data. And then maybe we'll get into some learnings when the restaurants hits them, like, wow, didn't know that. But tell me about the shoppers first.
Well, as a restaurant owner in the industry growing up, I always wanted that great feedback. And what I found was that when I get the feedback, I love to act on it very quickly. So it's got to be a good, detailed report. That's what we founded this on, was quality reports. And to do that, you need really good shoppers. So we recruit the right people. We train them. We communicate with them. We precisely recruit them for the right observations. And then it's the template that we work really closely with the restaurants, because there's very specific details about service and the guest experience that every individual restaurant has, that it's very important to them. So we customize every single report, and the detailed shops that we get back just give a large picture, but then very, very detailed. So by sending the right person in, you get a really good report. And then you take that feedback. What I always used to love to do was the weekly manager meeting. And every time we got shopped, I would print that report and I would set it in the middle of a manager meeting and say, hey, we just got shopped. Let's talk about it. And what I found is that it forced us to talk about service, that we always assumed, because we were doing our best to hire right people and we cared, that we always felt we were providing this great service. In essence, we weren't to every single guest, because we just assumed that it was easy, right? We don't have to focus on service. We've got good people. And we would focus on all the other projects in the restaurant, the inventory setup and kitchen layouts and bar cleanups. But we never spent enough time day to day on service, and dropping that secret shopping report in the middle of the manager's meeting forced us every single time to, hey, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? What's our learning experiences? Who's going to go back and talk to Jennifer and tell her that she did this great, but we have a few things to work on. So it becomes this personalized training tool, first with the managers, but then you sit down a one-on-one meeting with the individual employees and start to go over detail by detail. Yeah. And there's a lot of training involved in that.
Yeah. I want to go back to a couple of those things, but as I talked with Darren right before we started, I was just on a cruise, just coming off a cruise a couple of days ago. Cruise service is usually impeccable, and it was, right? And so, and then when you come back to land, you're like, why can't I get that same level of experience on land? What do the cruise ships do differently? Is it training? Is it just a commitment to service? And I believe those are part of it. But let's talk about that. What is broken in service right now? Why is it not great? What do restaurants need to do to change the mindset of service in their locations? Couple thoughts there. What do you think?
Well, what I typically see that is broken is the training program. That seems to be the one piece that restaurants do struggle with, putting in a training program that can be there for years and years to come. And what we're doing right is focusing on it. I find that service has a great deal of attention, and there's the leadership teams seem to take it a lot more critical, mostly based on social media, right? Nobody wants these poor reviews out to their potential customers. So they're really trying to protect that image. But I still think that the absolute key to great service is your leadership team, your management team. If they're focusing on the basics, hey, everyone, let's smile today. Let's make sure that our greet times are really quick. Let's get up to everybody and open the door before they even walk in. Those little things that we can overlook have to come from the leadership team. It's got to start with the managers, and then it trickles down. So I think that's the biggest key.
Listen, you just hit a couple small things that I swear to God are bigger than you think, or you may think as an operator. Saying hi quick and in a nice manner, opening that door. I always appreciate that. But there are times where I leave a restaurant and I get this really ambivalent, thanks for coming. Like that last opportunity is really crucial on the way out. So let's talk about some of those moments of capture that you can get. How do you talk about it when you have, and again, Darren trains, he goes in, he does 1 or 2 day workshops all the time. So he's really distilling a lot of information in a short period of time here. But what are some of those early touch points that can kind of make or break?
So think about it this way. If you go out for lunch today, I went out with my daughter yesterday for lunch at a place we hadn't tried before. Yeah. And it was $76, right? And we just had a couple sandwiches, a coffee, and an iced tea. And that's $76. When I close that guest check, the image of was it worth it is going through my mind, right? I just spent $76. Did I get anything in return? Well, I break that value into a few different components. So the first component, let's get this one out of the way quickly, quality, food quality. That I don't care if I'm paying $6 or I'm paying $65 for a meal. I'm expecting good quality every single time, no matter what. And that's a big portion of how I perceive the value. The next piece, which is what I consider the establishment. right? The cleanliness, and how are the bathrooms, and is the furniture in good condition, and are the plants at the front door flowering and red and yellow, or are they dying? So the establishment, I put a less priority on the value, but as a guest coming in, I see if there's landscaping debris all over the front porch, and I see that there's no toilet paper left. Correct. So we chip away at the perceived value from the establishment. Now, that third component is service. That's where we get to the people portion of this. The industry, obviously, it's a difficult industry. We all know that. We talk about the challenges all the time. With pricing continuing to be a struggle, right? We've got to keep our prices as reasonable as possible so that the guests can still afford to come. But we also need to price them on the high side so that our prime cost is in line. And when you're dealing with prices, I find that the absolute best way to overcome higher prices is with personalized, great service, that friendliness. That's the X factor. So yesterday in this simple new restaurant that we went to, the establishment wasn't there. It was dirty. It was a little disheveled. The quality was decent, but what took it over the top and made it a nice experience was the server. There was nothing exceptional about anything from this experience yesterday, except this young lady being super friendly, taking a little bit of time to talk to us as people, and just showing that she genuinely cared. It's hard to get to, but again, that's why I feel like a strong leadership team has to create the culture so that the staff wants to be there. They want to smile, they enjoy it, and they're trying to do this together as a group. And the guests coming in, we see that, we feel that, and the employee morale and the friendliness is a really, really big component of how I perceive the value.
Thanks, Darren. Good walkthrough there. And the question that I wrote down, I've already written it down twice because you've said it. Was it worth it? And I echo the same thing because prices have increased dramatically, and this is what everybody knows. So no rocket science there. But we have a family of 5, so we sit down, and you talk about a $76 lunch. A basic dinner is now $120 sometimes. I'm talking basic dinner, not the fancy dinner, just dinner. And so I asked that same question, was it worth it? I'm signing the thing, I'm adding the tip. I'm like, this was very mediocre, and so I appreciate the components that you had. It's the food, the service, and the establishment. And I typically just have not been able to raise my hand and said service has been exceptional lately. What can restaurants do in the short term, medium term, kind of long term to get better? Is it pre-shift? Is it regular training? What are some thoughts?
So it's first a matter of taking this on as a project, right? We take on new menus as a project and renovations, and let's implement an inventory program. Well, let's implement a good service plan. And whether you're a quick service restaurant or a nice fine dining restaurant, you need to understand the level of service. So for me, a service plan is getting 3, 4, 5 people together and let's meet on service. And you're coming up with a few actionable steps. Part of that has to be how you message to the employees, to where, again, I feel that a lot of people take this for granted that, oh, I'm a friendly person. Of course, I'm providing great service. But we don't get down to the basics, right? How quick should you greet the table, and what do you clear off the table when you're pre-bussing, right? We always say pre-bus, but there's a good way to do that. And there's ways to prove to me, the guest, that you're professional in your job. So a simple little service plan, I've got a little book on my website, 10 Steps to Great Service. And it's starting off with understanding what you're trying to do. It's figuring out a good communication plan. You had mentioned shift meetings. I think that those are perfect. So part of this has to be, let's understand what our message is and what we're trying to do. Let's now communicate this to the staff. How do we do that? Well, first, it's usually the bigger picture, right? I love getting 120 employees together in the room for 3-4 hours and going through a service training and really acknowledging what that truly means. But then it becomes the day-to-day. How do you get this message through all the time? I love that secret shopping report in the middle of the manager meeting because it focuses us. Coming out of a manager meeting, we always had shift meetings, right? And weekly, we would come up with 3, 4, 5 things that the management team wanted to communicate to the staff during our daily shift meeting, right? Our weekly message. Well, we always threw in service tips so that we were regularly talking about those. Today it's smile, 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 and we're just going to hammer that for the next couple of days. And now it's greet times. So you've got to take those little tiny things serious, but then on the bigger picture, you've got to implement this into a training program. So there's some materials and booklets and maybe a shadow program behind it so that you're able to consistently and professionally pass on all the details to all of your staff in a way that they actually comprehend them and they take them in and understand what type of service you're trying to provide here.
Right. You referenced the report on your site, 10 Steps to Great Service. We were remiss in not mentioning the site early on, but correct me if I'm wrong, servicewithstyle.com, correct? Okay, so folks definitely go there as a resource. Do you want to share a couple more of those steps of service? Like what else should people know? What if I was a server, if I was a manager, and you already mentioned a handful of things to bring into a meeting the next day, like actionable stuff they could use today, tomorrow. What else is a quick tip?
Well, let's think about distractions. So a server comes in at 11 o'clock, right? And place opens at 11:30 and they've got a bunch of things to do. Let's say that there's 15 things on their checklist to get done. And 11:45 comes and there's only 6 or 7 of those things on the checklist done. Oh, I did them by memory. I didn't look at a checklist. I know how to open this place. And then you get into a rush and 12:15, you realize that nobody cut lemons and nobody made iced tea and the ice bins weren't filled up. All those little tiny things take away from the type of service that I'm getting. So now my iced tea is a little bit longer. The server's a little bit more flustered, a little more distracted. And if the setup was ready, if the management took the setup of the restaurant really serious, checklist, action list, responsibilities list, so that the knucklehead stuff gets done by your team regularly all the time and you're set to succeed. So that at 11:30, you're holding that door open saying, hey, welcome, super happy to see you today. Instead of, oh, we got guests at the door. I know I'm just finishing the coffee. I'll just be a few minutes. So it's being set up in advance. And if you've got the restaurant ready to go and you've got really good morale, now you're off to having a fantastic shift.
Yeah, good tip there. Hey, something that I was thinking about in my head, you do a lot of training. A lot of restaurant staff is on the younger side traditionally, or they can be transient college kids, high school kids, etc. Anything, and everybody's mentality has changed and we all get distracted by our phones. And so it's a different generation of way of training people, a way of talking and leading people. What are some tips for that new generation in terms of training and so forth? What do you think?
It's the same information that we're trying to pass on to them. It's just making sure that you're adapting your message in a way that they understand it and that they're engaged in it. I find that building your team and getting them really trained is the huge key to everything that we're talking about. And people bring a lot of different qualities to the table. So during the interview process, you're looking for character, you're looking for smiles, you're looking for a genuinely friendly people that you feel can create that hospitality feeling. Well, when you're bringing in star people, a lot of times they don't have the experience. And that's where it has to be taken more serious that the small aspects of service are trained. How we clear a table, how we carry a tray, how we pour coffee, all the little tiny things so that your staff looks professional, that they look like they know what they're doing. And for me, honestly, when a server comes up to a table and really properly pre-busses it, I think to myself, they know what they're doing. They're doing a great job. Thank you. I now enjoy my environment a little bit more because I've got some clear space. And it's the tiny things that they can pass on. But the younger generation, I find individual conversations, right? Let's talk to them and get them involved. Service is a lot of the small things built up, and it's day after day after day of having that right culture so that you can talk to the staff and they have an open mind to listen to you, to where if they're shut down and they're not hearing your message, you're not getting through to them.
Yeah. Uh, the crews, again, I'm going to go back there for a second. Yeah, they really did the sequence of service so well. The timing of it, coming around the sides, ordering from the right people at the right time, taking stuff away. Of course, you never get this anymore. The actual clearing the crumbs off. When's the last time I had that at a restaurant? I mean, just those small touches really, really do make the experience a lot better. They were obviously very polite. I mean, just wonderful service. So yeah, I'm not saying as a restaurant you can go send all your staff off on a cruise so they can experience that, but if you haven't experienced cruise service, man, it really does take things to a different level. Question for you: some restaurants do this, some don't even do it. The manager walks around, hey, how's everything? Or the owner walks around, table touches. I think they can be a really nice thing, but sometimes they get kind of that same assumptive, like, hey, everything's fine, right? And they just move on. What do you think about it?
I break those into two. It's table touches, table visits. And a table touch is typically what you see in a chain restaurant. Hi, folks, how is everything? Hey, folks, how is everything? Hey, folks, how is everything? And they're halfway to the next table by the time you even get a chance to respond.
Exactly.
Well, I really like those at certain times. I go into table touch mode when I'm a cook short and we're running 15-minute ticket times and things just aren't really running well. I'm looking for problems. I may be saying, hey, folks, how is everything? But what I'm thinking is there a problem here that I can handle really quickly before it becomes an issue? Then when things are going great, you've got a nice, comfortable shift, everything's really working well, I go into table visit mode. And I'm now trying to connect with the guest, right? I'm not staying 3-5 minutes at the table, but I'm getting into short, friendly conversations to try to build a little bit of a relationship. Hey, how are the grandkids? Did you get out golfing this week? And I use those at particular times, but when I'm in table visits, I'm hunting for problems. And the goal is to stop any problem while they're still in the restaurant. And that's what you go searching for.
That was a good overview. A good snippet there. I feel like sometimes those visits are perfunctory and they're not looking to do anything. But finding problems is key. But when you do have the chance to do this, if you're not doing this as a restaurant, when you have those times where Darren just referenced and you can spend that extra time, I really, as a customer, I'm telling you, I feel that. And like, oh, wow, I talked to the owner. Like the owner spent time with me, or the manager spent a minute with me. It really feels more important than you imagine as yourself, because you're doing it all the time. The customers really do appreciate that. And I think you could echo that experience. Darren, as we start to wrap up here, I'm going to kind of open the floor for you. Stuff we didn't touch on. If you want to go back to what that report looks like, what the feeling of that hits that restaurant where they get a 60% and they go, holy cow, I need to improve. Let me open it up for you.
Well, sure. Go back to the scoring of the reports, as you just alluded to. We've taken years and years and years and really tried to dissect what a secret shopping score transitions to a feeling from the guest. When I walk out of the restaurant at a 93% type of secret shopping score, well, what is that feeling? And as I mentioned earlier, that 90% and above is fantastic. That's where, let's say I was dining with you once a month, right? If it's 90% and above, I'm going to slightly increase that frequency. And hopefully I'm also going to tell a few friends. The 75 to 89% is basically where you met my expectations. Everything was fine. We got the burger on time. It was okay. And you're going to see me next month, the next month, the next month. Nothing crazy, but I've got a place that I kind of like. It's okay. Well, the 60 to 74%, this is where obviously you didn't meet my expectations. And now I'm not ready to kick you to the curb yet, but I'm not dining as often. So if I was once a month, I'm probably not coming back for 3 or 5 months. And usually the reason that I come back is either price, location, or food quality.
Right.
What doesn't bring me back in that scoring range is usually the people. Now, the 50 to 59%, this category is pretty simple, right? I've never been a confrontational person, so I'm not going to call somebody over to the table to complain. I'm just going to write my signature, fill in my tip, close the book, and I'll probably just never think about you again. There's enough options out there that there's 4 of them that I can see from the parking lot before I leave your establishment.
Yeah, right.
So I simply write you off. Well, the below the 50%, that's where it turns into issues. That's where it wasn't worth $70 and I feel like I want my voice heard and a manager wasn't at the table. Typically, that's who goes to social media. That's who goes to the water cooler at work and tells 3 or 4 friends about their bad experience. So it's a sliding scale. So let's get those service scores into 90% and above to build that type of repeat business over and over.
100%. And you hit the nail on the head. There are so many options. Sure, maybe you live in a small town and there's only one good lunch place and one good dinner place. I don't know. But where I am, my market is growing like crazy. And so it's very competitive. I have lots of choices for lunch, lots of choices for dinner. And so what are you doing to pull me in? Not forget about the marketing piece now, forgetting about that, all this stuff. What are you doing when I do dine with you to give me an experience that makes me want to come back to you more frequently than I might otherwise do? And Darren, you hit on a ton of tips for folks to do that.
Well, and one last one, Jamie, would be start it off right early. That when I've got a smile on my face within the first 2.5 or 3 minutes of being at your establishment, I already sense that things are going to go well. Mm-hmm. And my absolute favorite tip, and it's not appropriate all the time, but what we always tried to do in our restaurants was 15 seconds goes a long way. And we tried to train our staff that when appropriate, you're greeting a table, you're greeting a bar guest, to spend 15 seconds with them that has nothing to do about the restaurant. You're asking them about their hat that they're wearing, or you're commenting on a nice pair of shoes or a nice purse, and you're just trying to pick up a couple things to spark just a really small, short conversation with one goal. If you can make them smile in that first 15 seconds, then now I trust that it's going to be a great experience. So start them off right.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the corollary to that is that feeling of invisibility. Like I sat down and it's been 2 minutes and it feels like 10, and I start going like this. Oh, I know she sat me here, but does anyone else know I'm here? Do they know I'm in this zone? And that is the worst feeling, right? And
because
everybody's been there.
You now get fearful that you chose the wrong restaurant, that you're not going to have a good experience, and you start to feel a little uncertain. That's why I want to start you off perfectly with a great smile, lots of acknowledgement. And even if you make a few mistakes later, it's okay, because up front, you made me smile and I trust you.
Yeah, exactly. So as stated, folks, Darren does this all the time in 1-2 day trainings, 3-4 hour sessions with teams, going through this stuff. So he's an expert here. We could talk for hours and hours about this, but well, hopefully we gave you a lot of good nuggets there. Darren, go ahead and send them to website, social, anything else you want to point them towards, please.
Yeah, just a few special details on your site, which is servicewithstyle.com/running restaurants. So there's a link to that 10 steps to great service. There's a discount on secret shopping and a way to get some more details. So servicewithstyle.com/running restaurants.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, Darren and I, we've known each other a long time. And so we have a great relationship. And so I'm pleased, please go there. Thank you for offering that to our readers and listeners and members. I appreciate that. So that is servicewithstyle.com/running restaurants. Folks, Darren Denington from Service with Style. You can find them at servicewithstyle.com/running restaurants. So go there for that discount and other great information. For more great restaurant marketing and service and people and tech tips, stay tuned to us here at runningrestaurants.com. In the meantime, wherever you're listening to this, please do us a favor, give us a like or a subscribe or some feedback. Speaking about feedback, that'd be great. It really helps us. We appreciate it. Thanks so much, Darren.
Thanks, Jamie.